Hi there, Cosita crew, Jamie here. Today I'm going to talk to you about how I cut fabric, both with the fabric, yardage cuts, and fat quarters. So first we're going to start out with a yardage cut that's the full width of fabric. Fabric normally comes off the bolt folded in half, so you need to press it out and press out the center fold all nice, and then it's about anywhere between 42 and 44 inches wide. So then you take it and you fold it in half at the selvages. Selvages are the finished edge that comes from the factory, so the fabric doesn't fray on the bolt. And so when you match it up selvage to selvage, you can see that there's a little like wonky spot in the fabric. It doesn't fold nice. That means it's not folding along the grain. And you want it to fold along the grain so that when you cut, you're cutting along the grain as much as possible, and that will help your pieces not to get as distorted when you're sewing. So you kind of work it along each other, give it a little shimmy shake until you get it out, get it as smooth as possible, and then lay it down on your mat and give it a little smooth. And then get your ruler. I like this 6 by 24 inch ruler the best, and your sharp rotary cutter. So there are many different ways to cut fabric, and everybody does it different. There's no right way. This is just how I do it. You can watch a million YouTube tutorials on other ways to do it, and you can figure out which way works best for you. So the way I do it is I put my long ruler on my fabric, and the little 1/8 tick marks on the ruler, I'll line them up. So say all the 1/4 inch markings along the top of my fold to make sure it's square and straight. And make sure you're getting both pieces of fabric and trying to waste as little as possible. I know it's kind of a lot all at once, but anyway, then you take your rotary color in your hand, push down hard on your ruler with your hand, and then push down equally as hard on your rotary cutter, making a nice cut. Now where some people differ is some people will put their ruler for the first time over here and cut towards themselves, and then you don't have to flip your fabric, whereas I'm going to flip my fabric here in a little bit, and some people think that distorts it and will give you not as much accuracy, but I've already whacked off the tip of my finger with the rotary cutter, and I don't really want to do it again. So I'll do it this way, and then I flip it. Now some people will line up their nice straight edge of the fabric on the mat, and then use their ruler to measure out and cut using the mat markings. I don't do it that way. I use the ruler all the time. So if I'm wanting to cut a 2-inch strip, I line up the 2-inch markings along my nice new straight edge, and then making sure the tick marks on the top are also straight so I know that my strip is square. And then again, pressing down. And you don't want to turn your rotary cutter in or push it against your ruler at all, because then it'll move your ruler. So you want to push down, straight down hard with your rotary cutter. And there you have your 2-inch strip. And then you can subcut it however you wish, making sure that you cut off the selvage first, because it will shrink differently, and so you never want to use selvage. You always want to cut it off. And then we'll get our fat quarter. So a fat quarter is a 1/2 yard wide, but only half the width of fabric, that's how they get the name fat quarter. It's a more usable form than just a 1/4 yard of fabric full width. So since there's no fold and to get a grain, the way I do it is I use this selvage to get my first cut to be square. Some people probably do it different. That's fine. Do it however you want. Just how I do it. So I'll line my tick marks up along the selvage, and then cut again. And I flip it over. Get a little smooth. line up my 2-inch increment marks, and cut again. And then I have my 2-inch strip for my fat quarter. Another thing that I like to do when I'm cutting is if I see in the pattern that something calls for a 3.5 by 8 inch piece of fabric, as well as a 2.5 by say 6 inch piece of fabric, I'll cut the 3.5 inch piece of strip first, cut the 8 inch off, then cut another 6 inches off, and then trim that down so it's 2.5 by 6. And that way you're not cutting 2 full strips for 2 pieces of fabric. You can get the same 2 cuts out of 1 strip without wasting as much fabric. So there you go. That is how I cut fabric.